What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Eye on the U. I'm Andre Fernandez, your host, joined as always by our University of Miami sports beat writer, Jordan McPherson. We are back to look at a lot of things following Miami's victory over Miami's trip to Virginia Tech that follows the convincing victory over NC State. I'm twisted in a knot because of the college football playoff rankings that came out last night. And I probably should have been for a couple of weeks now, but I don't know. You know, sometimes when something doesn't hit you right away, I think it really didn't digest to me until yesterday when I really just sat there and let it kind of simmer a little bit. I'm like, can you believe this? Like, what the hell? I mean, I don't know. Look, we're supposed to be neutral, we're supposed to be biased, but it's like when something like this is staring at you in the face, it's just hard to believe that they wouldn't take something into account. If you're wondering what we're talking about, I'm sure you do if you care about about the Canes or Notre Dame or all of college football. Notre Dame's a few spots ahead of Miami. And the rationale right now is because Miami's losses are worse than Notre Dame's losses, which fine, okay. Technically they are. But one of those losses is Miami beat them. And I know Levitard and other people have gone off on this already, and his crew has and all that stuff. I mean, I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but it's like, God, man, it's like this happened already. Like, we're supposed to evolve as a species, apparently, right? Apparently we don't, but that's a whole nother story. But I mean, this reminds me of again, we'll just start with our old moment of the week from me. I mean, this reminds me of 2000 when FSU in Miami, I was there right here in this place that doesn't exist anymore, sadly. And Miami beats FSU. They both finished with one loss. Mind you, back then it was a different system. It was the BCS and all that. And then they take FSU. FSU goes and plays against Oklahoma. Miami gets screwed out of playing for the national title, which Miami then goes and beats the Gators convincingly in the Sugar Bowl, makes their case, but whatever. It was already had 1 and 2 going on. And in the Orange Bowl. Anyway, long story short, Oklahoma beats FSU convincingly. Josh Heupel, Tennessee coach, by the way, at quarterback that day. And then, so Miami gets screwed out of that title. So it's like, I don't know. It's just I feel like this has happened to them before, and here we go again. Not to sound whiny, but it's like when a team beats another team, what are you waiting for? Yeah. Are they waiting? I mean, I'm sorry. I feel like they're waiting for one of them to fall out, do them the favor, solve this for them, which could happen. But it's like more and more, even if it wasn't, I mean, look, it's not, I feel like I want this to come down to the finish line to force them to make a choice. Because the cop out, the easy way out is if either both of these teams get to a point where they just take them both, or one of them loses and solves the problem for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Andre, you basically hit a lot of it on there. I'm going to go into some of the nuance with in terms of just trying to explain the logic that really is just completely illogical for how the committee has gotten them to this point. So Miami is 13, Notre Dame is 9. Both teams are 8-2. And the committee's breakdown of what they are supposed to be considering for teams with identical or with comparables records and otherwise comparable teams are supposed to be strength of schedule, head-to-head competition. I'm going to stress that part there. Head-to-head competition, comparative outcomes of common opponents, and other relevant factors such as unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected a team's performance during the season. Head-to-head competition. Both teams are 8-2. That's a comparable. Those should be otherwise comparable teams. Should they not, Andre? Yes or no?
I just know that when you tiebreak a standings in any league, pretty much, don't you start with head-to-head?
You do, which is what was brought up to the committee was why is head-to-head not considered yet? The direct quote from new selection committee chair Hunter Yurachek was Miami and Notre Dame have not been in the same quote-unquote comparative pool for head-to-head to matter yet. What the hell does that mean? I will attempt to explain.
You read my face.
I will attempt to explain what he meant by comparative pool. Per the committee's voting process, they don't look at every team at the same time. They'll look at chunks of 6 or so teams at a time, rank the top. I think it's supposed to be, they take the first 6, figure out 1 through 4, then they'll bring more teams into the fray and then start doing it in slices. So basically, by the time they picked Notre Dame at 9, Miami apparently wasn't even in the picture yet. So they had Notre Dame slotted before they even thought to have Miami in the rankings. That's my understanding of this logic or lack thereof. And then when they continue to say, well, when they said the head-to-head doesn't matter yet, he also said, we have compared the losses of the two teams, which, again, if that's one of multiple data points, sure. Notre Dame, again, they lost to Miami. And they lost to Texas A&M, undefeated number 3. Miami lost to Louisville. Miami lost to SMU. Miami's losses are, without question, Notre Dame's losses.
No, right.
If that's the only data point that you're considering, when there is, I don't know, a matchup on the field where Miami may have won that game 27-24.
Take the may out of that.
Yeah, where they have done that. I don't get the logic behind it. And it's also, I'm just going to go a little bit tangent. It's not just Miami, Notre Dame on this. You look at a few of the teams in between them in the rankings. Look at Alabama, for example. Alabama is 10. The committee said that their spots were 8, 9, and 10, which ended up being Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama in that order, where it was their biggest debate. Oklahoma was above Alabama because Oklahoma beat Alabama. A head-to-head matchup that matters in the ranking. I'll digress slightly. Oklahoma gets 8. Why did Notre Dame get above Alabama? Let's compare their resumes. Alabama beat Georgia, the number 4 team. They beat Vanderbilt, who is a top 20 team. They are just below Miami, number 14. They also beat Tennessee and Missouri, who are in the 21-25 slots. I count 4 ranked wins there, Andre, don't you? Notre Dame has a win over USC, who is 15, and their second best win was their game against Pitt last week, who moved out of the rankings after Notre Dame beat them.
Right.
Now let's look at their losses, because that's what this committee loves. Again, Notre Dame has Miami and Texas A&M, 3-13. Alabama has Oklahoma, who is now number 8, but now that FSU loss week 1 magically matters. It didn't the first 2 weeks when Alabama was number 4 despite having that FSU loss, but now they have a second loss. It dropped them all the way to 10 because they lost to a ranked Oklahoma team. Now that FSU loss matters. So they're picking and choosing when a loss is a quality loss or when a win should justify a quality win. I can guess, EC, sort of why they're starting to pick these up. There may be some Big Ten reasons in there that we can sort of hash out there, but it's starting to get very clear as to how the committee is sort of angling towards ranking some of these top teams and basically putting their rankings out and making the justifications after the fact.
Look, if it was a situation where, and it happens sometimes, like we've seen it when an unranked team beats it, like, I don't know, the number 5 team in the country. We're not saying, we've all done polls before. You don't drop the number 5 team way to the bottom and surge that unranked team all the way to the top. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that. These teams are right there. And it's like, I don't know. And what's going to, look, it may be a moot point, and I swear to you, this is what's happening. Like, I feel like they're just waiting for one of them to lose.
They're waiting for one of them to lose, or one of those teams or enough of those teams,
or enough of those teams
that doesn't matter
to lose to take them both. But here's the problem with that. If you're Miami, here's the problem with that. They're still going to rank Notre Dame ahead, and what's going to happen? They're going to get f***ed on a home game, and Notre Dame is going to end up being, and Miami's going to have to go to South Bend when it should be the other way around. If you went by the head-to-head tiebreaker, and that game should be down here. Because watch, you could see it. They may end up in a, I don't know, 6 versus 11, 7 versus 10, whatever it ends up being, and you get screwed on the home field advantage, which is a big deal.
Yeah,
because Notre Dame has not won in Miami in my lifetime, I believe. If I look up the history,
I believe that's correct. Yeah, and also again, and just on the ranking part, Miami, if they get in as that large, they'll be 10 at the lowest because the 2 conference champs, the ACC champ, and the group of 5 champ will be 11 and 12. But there's just so much inconsistency with these rankings. I mean, you look at, again, another one of the spots, the head-to-head, or at least the ranking-wise, I look at Miami against Utah. Miami is 13, Utah is 12. Again, Miami has a Notre Dame win. Utah's best win is Arizona State, which magically just got moved back to number 25. And their 2 losses are BYU, which they lost by 3, who is just above them at number 11. And they lost to number 5, Texas Tech, by 24 points. They lost that game 34-10. But because it's a loss to a top 5 team, they get the grace period. It's these things make, again, I'm trying to process how losing a game, how your losses and who you lose to is more important than who you win against when your records are the same. And then just, again, what they credit as a quote unquote quality loss. You look at Oregon, they have one loss right now to Indiana, but and they have really no wins. Their game against USC this weekend is going to be their first actual chance to get a good win this year.
Right.
But if you ask the committee, they're still getting credit for that win against Penn State because at the time, Penn State looked like a good team. Penn State is now out of the rankings. They fired their coach, but let's look at an ACC team.
And they're like 3-6, aren't they?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes, exactly. But you look at a team like Virginia, who beat Louisville, who for the last 2 weeks was ranked, but because Clemson beat Louisville last week, Louisville is now unranked. So that makes it seem like it's a less quality win for Virginia and therefore a more crushing loss for Miami because the committee decided this week Louisville isn't a top 25 team, but still thinks Penn State, even though they're not 25, is still a tough matchup.
I'm glad.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
I'm glad you're breaking it down because I've broken character this week and I'm sounding like a little bit of a homer. But I think even if you're not a fan of Miami, you didn't go to Miami, whatever, you look at this, and I'm glad you're bringing up other examples of how this just doesn't jive with typical ways of tie-breaking teams. And this whole, you know what? Then don't say that winning at a certain time of year doesn't matter, because it does. Clearly it does. Clearly it does. And it has since the dawn of all of this, when when they went back to the rankings era. I brought it up a few weeks ago. I remember growing up, it was like, oh, Miami lost, but it's like week 1. Oh, okay, they'll be fine. If they win 10 in a row now, they'll creep their way back up. They're fine. You wanted to lose that game. You didn't want to be 10-0 and drop one at the finish line
and fall when everyone has the eyes on you. Yeah.
Because what happened to a certain team that's ranked ahead of Miami right now, time and again, would come down to the Orange Bowl, lose that game in week 11 back then when they played 11 games. Guess what? Out. Whereas Miami might have lost that one game to FSU or somebody 2 months earlier, and then they got in. Yeah. So that timing thing has been around forever, and it's still valued right now, clearly by what you're explaining.
Yeah.
So you get, but it's even worse. But it's even worse because that is just a team working its way back up, which is understandable. This is like you're choosing not to acknowledge at certain points. Then what's a body of work then?
Yeah. Yeah. And that just to quickly, I guess, just to wrap this up, I know we probably should be talking about some football also.
Well, we are talking about some football. We're talking about what people care about.
Yes. No, agreed. But I'm just going to wrap this up. Obviously, Miami's path at this point, I asked the committee chair directly after the ranking show that what will it take for Miami to get into that quote unquote comparative tier so that head-to-head will matter.
Right.
He went, Miami needs to win out. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. They need to beat Virginia Tech. They need to beat Pitt. And then he said, Miami needs to hope that other things with teams above them fall their way.
Yeah, they need 10 through 12 to get out of the way.
Yeah. So they need.
And we have 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. They need Oklahoma, either at least 1 or 2 of Oklahoma, Alabama, BYU, and Utah to lose to get Miami within a 3-point range. Because apparently 8, 9, 10 was enough to compare head-to-head. So if Miami's within 2 spots of Notre Dame, head-to-head should be logically in play at that point, right?
It's pretty funny. It's going to be pretty funny if Miami does win these last 2 games and then Notre Dame wins these last 2 games. If all of a sudden they get to that point where they're separated by a spot or 2 and then, okay. And then at the last minute, they flip them.
Yeah, and, but also something interesting with the Notre Dame Miami these final 2 weeks. Notre Dame's final two games are against Syracuse and Stanford, 2 teams that Florida has played or Miami has played.
Right.
Miami ends with Pitt. Miami ends against Pitt, a team that Notre Dame has played. Both teams have played NC State. Miami had a more convincing win over NC State than Notre Dame did. So in addition to the head-to-head, which I don't remember how many times we've said it, Miami won that game and should be considered in the factoring. There will be 4 separate games of common opponent data points to be applied, assuming both teams are 10-2 once we are done with games on November 29th.
No one that watches this show, everyone that watches this show should know by now how big fans we are of Family Guy. I just thought of the scene where he goes, okay. It's like what this feels like. It's like, But okay. All right.
Yeah.
Enough of me being, I don't know, whatever I'm being. I don't even, I'm looking at our outline here. What did we want to talk about besides this, which is, again, what people really care about right now is talking about the rankings, talking about what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
Not only Miami, but, and again, last night, Miami's still the top-ranked ACC team. I know the 11 seed is a placeholder spot. It goes to the champion. But again, if this team, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Because in the end, you want to get to the football side of it. This is the football side of it. They have to beat a 3-7 Virginia Tech team on the road. If they don't, you don't deserve it. You could throw that entire rant in the trash can right now if that happens. Or then they go to a solid, not elite, not great, but a solid Pitt team, a game that's going to be on the road again in the cold weather.
And we remember what happened the last time Miami was in this situation, having to go up to Pitt a la 2017.
Well, they had 1 year where they did pull it off. They had 1 year they did have that season ender, and they did pull it off. But yes, we remember the 10-0 start that came crashing down in an unexpected. I think it was a low scoring. Miami got shut down that day, and ended up spiraling into a 3-game losing streak to end the season, which is the same story. I mean, look, in the grand scheme, putting the rankings aside, Miami has not finished strong in recent years. Even last season, again, 3 out of 4 losses. So this is the moment. We have reached that point, whether it's with a 2-loss Miami team or if they were undefeated right now, they have to finish. For whatever reason, even if they were undefeated right now, you'd still be saying the same thing. They have to finish. They have to get over these terrible Novembers that they've had. And here's the opportunity against the Virginia Tech team that just hired James Franklin, but he's not coming in this week. He technically is, but not yet coaching. So it's still the 3-7 team, Virginia Tech, that in name only is the old rival of Miami, but nowhere near what it used to be. Kyron Drones, their quarterback, versatile quarterback, is one of the few weapons, I guess, that you have to kind of account for. But it's a matchup that Miami should be able to exploit. They're a very turnover-prone team. Miami's defense has excelled at that. You wrote a nice piece the other day about the way that Keontae Scott's still being involved, even though he's hurt. Unfortunately, sounds like he might not be back the rest of the season. But guys like Jacoby Thomas keep stepping up. 4 turnovers the last 2 games, things like that. So again, this is a take care of business week yet again for Miami, and they don't deserve it if they don't do it.
Agreed. And if you look at Miami these last 2 weeks, specifically from those last 2.5 minutes of the second quarter against Syracuse on through the NC State game, this is the best Miami has looked all season. Right. The offense is finally looking good. It's getting creative. It's making explosive plays. The defense has been top 10 all year. Right. This is the best Miami has looked over the course of the season. And it goes back to what the committee said after the first rankings, to bring it back to the committee. They said Miami's offense was inconsistent. That was holding them back. Well, Miami scored 38 against Syracuse. They scored 41 against NC State. Their defense has been absolutely fantastic. Like we mentioned, the 4 turnovers by Jacoby Thomas, Keontae Scott, the pick 6 against NC State. They're peaking at the right time after getting humbled in that SMU loss. It was the wake-up call for them. Carson Beck has looked great. Malachi Tony's getting more involved in a little bit of everything. The run game starting to step up with Gerard Pringle filling in for Mark Fletcher. I mean, the true freshman, 116 yards on 17 carries. He added a lot there. The offensive line had cut out the pre-snap penalties the last couple of weeks, which was really what dinged them in those 2 losses. They just need to keep that momentum going through these final 2 weeks. Again, that may seem like a big ask considering what we've seen from Miami, but if this roster on paper should be able to do what it's done the last 2 weeks in these final 2 weeks, if so, it's giving the committee every option for it to be up in that top 12 by the end of the season.
Yeah, and again, this team now and doing all this, considering a lot of key guys are still hurt. We mentioned Keontae Scott, one of them, but OJ Frederick's been hurt. They've had a bunch of injuries. Mark Fletcher's been hurt, although Mark Fletcher might be able to come back this week. It sounds Jordan, like you said, CJ Daniels, it looks like finally he'd be back potentially. But guys have stepped up. Gerard Pringle is one of those guys in the backfield. The depth of the backfield has really shown this season with the way that they've had guys hurt, primarily Fletcher for a little bit, and they've still been able to not miss a beat. Pringle, going over 100 yards the other day. Good to see.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, Pringle stepping up there. The receiver group, Keelan Marion stepped up the last 3 weeks with CJ Daniels out. And you've seen a couple of the freshmen in there. Dalen Upshaw had some good plays. Josh Moore had a couple of good catches. But on that injury front, CJ Daniels could have played last week. Mario Cristobal said they held him out precautionary, just the fact he didn't get much practice reps. So they figured, you know what? Let's keep him out. Let's make sure he's fully ready to go for the final push. They felt good with what Keelan Marion's been doing, close to 300 yards over the last 3 weeks. Obviously, Malachi Tony's Malachi Tony. He just does something different, something incredible every week. I mean, a 44-yard bomb that he threw to JoJo Trader last week was just so much fun to watch. And him getting excited about it, going, yeah, I mean, a lot of people forgot that I had to play quarterback for 5 weeks in the playoffs last year for American Heritage. And Andre just sitting in the press conference looking like trying to raise his hand, like, I saw you. I was there. I know. But
I did this.
Yeah.
I was just sat back and did this. And I was like, yep, he knows how to do that.
Yeah, so again, they're getting contributions from all around, but they're hoping to get some of their big guns back, which would just reinforce them even more. CJ Daniels should be back. It looks like Mark Fletcher could be back. Same with OJ Frederic. Their defensive tackles, Ahmad Moten missed 2 weeks and then came back last week, only for the other defensive tackle starter, David Blay, to miss time. But they're hoping he could potentially come back. If not, Justin Scott's been fantastic the last 3 weeks. So honestly, they've had that three-headed rotation, so they're good there depth-wise.
Getting Mesidor back was huge, though.
Yeah. Again, losing him for that 1 week. That 1 week was rough, but he's been, again, Mesidor's been lights out. The 1-2 punch on the edge between him and Ruben Bang is incredible. And then the real tough spot is Keontae Scott. Again, nickel corner, the semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to the nation's best DB. And it's just, if he comes back this season, I will be completely shocked. I mean, he has a boot on his right foot. And Mario Cristobal, just the way that he said it, he didn't want to formally, officially rule him out for the season. I'm assuming that's for if they're able to make a deep playoff run, maybe he can come back late. But these next 2 games, I do not expect anything from Keontae Scott. And in his place, Bryce Fitzgerald, another true freshman, who really excelled in spot playing time in those safety roles, rotating in that part of the group. He went up and started a nickel. First drive, got tested right away, had a pass breakup on second down, had a tackle on third down to force NC State's first punt. Him and Isaiah Taylor were the main 2 guys rotating in there. Dylan Day got a few reps. So they're going to be doing like a by committee approach there. But like you said, and like I wrote earlier this week, those injured guys, whether it's CJ Daniels, Mark Fletcher, Keontae Scott, those are veterans. Those are key pieces to the heartbeat of that team. And when they haven't been able to be on the field, they've been doing everything they can on the sideline, whether it's being hype men, whether it's essentially serving as assistant coaches. Keontae Scott, specifically after Marty Brown fumbled in the second quarter, Keontae Scott pulled Marty Brown aside and went, "You're still that dude. You're still one of your guys. You're still going to have a big impact on this team. Man up." Next drive, Marty Brown gets a 1-yard touchdown to help Miami extend its lead. And it's just doing those little things that, again, it's things that you should expect from teammates and whatnot, but it gets noticed even more when that's really all you can do as a player. When you have to do what you can to try to still make your voice heard. You're seeing it from those key guys.
I wish Marty Brown started scoring touchdowns. We could put the Doc Brown face every time. I like that. Like every time, it'd be great. But it's a great job of showing. It's a great job by the guy stepping up, but it shows how far Miami's come in terms of having overall position by position team depth, which I remember, in years past when we did this show, we would talk about all the time. Like, until they get that, they're not going to truly contend and be able to beat anybody outside of the regular everyday teams in this conference, maybe. And they've reached that point, and that's why they have a win over Notre Dame, among other things, this season. But let's look at, now that we've shredded the rationale back and forth, let's look at Jordan's hard work here of putting another viewing guide for this weekend. I feel like we should have a jingle introducing that or something. like it's now become a staple for as long as Miami stays in it. But you did your homework as usual, and I'm gonna do like last week. I'm gonna cue you up here game by game, kind of like tell people what the key matchups to watch this weekend are, beside not just in the ACC but around the country, that could help Miami narrow this necessary gap that they need to get closer to getting into this thing if they win their final 2 games. They'll start with Missouri facing number 8 Oklahoma. I think this is kind of obvious. Someone needs to knock the Sooners down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma has 2 games left. They have Missouri this week. They have LSU next week. Both of them are at home for Oklahoma. But again, Oklahoma is one of those handful of 2-loss teams or teams that are just around Miami that Miami would benefit from if they lose.
Yeah. Now one that would be good to kind of dive into this one a little bit at noon. That Oklahoma game noon on ABC, by the way. I missed that part. Also at noon, Louisville facing SMU. These games will be going on while Miami's game is going on, obviously. But keep an eye on that ticker down at the bottom, and or once in a while flip back and forth if you want.
Thankfully, YouTube TV's back, so you can do the multi-box if you have.
That's true. TV. That's right. Everybody's been waiting. We know several people who get, sometimes we love them, but they can get very frustrated. We're frustrated at that situation. We love you, Bill. And now he's very happy that came back. I'm sure many people around South Florida are. YouTube TV. So if you want to do the whole, back and forth, watch them both at the same time thing, what has to happen here for Miami? This is 2 teams, Louisville and SMU, even though Louisville took the L the other day. So I'm guessing Louisville has the one that Miami needs here. Yes. Knock the Mustangs down.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting.
Because, or there's a little wrinkle to it, right?
Yeah. So the way it works, Miami still has a thin path to potentially making the ACC championship game. They need basically 5 things to happen. Only 5 things to happen, which compared to what they need to get closer to Notre Dame, who they beat, seems a little bit simpler. So first off, Miami wins out, obviously. They need Pittsburgh to lose. Pittsburgh to beat Georgia Tech. That's going to be a spoiler alert to one of our games that we talk about later on. So Miami went out. Pitt beat Georgia Tech. SMU lose one of its final 2 games. So either lose to Louisville or lose to Cal.
Right.
And then one of the following. Either Virginia lose to Virginia Tech. I'm not banking on that one. Or Duke losing one of its final 2 to either UNC or Wake Forest. If all that happens, Miami's in the ACC championship game, which could give them a chance for the auto bid, which would mean all of this is moot. But because I doubt all that's happening, I doubt Pitt beats Georgia Tech. We still need to factor in all this other stuff. So in this specific scenario, Louisville beating SMU would benefit Miami from the odds of making the ACC championship. And really, Miami played them both. Miami lost them both. So it really doesn't matter in terms of the head-to-head thing because the committee views both of these as non-quality losses regardless. So if Louisville has 4 losses or both have 3, or whichever one has 4 losses, does it really matter? The committee doesn't matter. I think it matters anyway.
Gotcha. Now, let's move on. If Miami, by this point in the day, hasn't suffered a catastrophic loss at Blacksburg and it still matters, USC faces Oregon in Eugene, 3:30. That's the CBS game at 3:30. This one I can take from here. This is the one where Miami has to root for USC to lose, to devalue Notre Dame, and force everyone to go, let's come up with another one. Let's come up with another one.
Yeah, between that and also, remember, USC is only 2 spots below Miami. So if they get a win,
I found another excuse. Yeah. I found that this was my pile of excuses right here.
So it could give them a chance to get into those Big Ten. Oh, sorry, I'm the top 10. Again, we already know what the Big 18. Yeah, we already know the 2 conferences are favoring. USC Oregon's a big Big Ten matchup. If USC wins, they'll find a way to get them to jump Miami, and then it also bolsters Notre Dame's resume. Yada 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 yada. Go for the Ducks.
Right. Now, Syracuse against the very much aforementioned Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Again, easy one. Unlikely because Syracuse, we saw what the shape that they're in at this point. But for what it's worth, yes, Miami would be incredible for Miami to see Syracuse, for Miami fans to see Syracuse pull this off on the road in South Bend. If you care to watch, 3:30 on Peacock and NBC.
Or if not even win, at least play better than they did against Miami. Play better than they did against Miami for the data point of common opponents.
Right. Kentucky at Vanderbilt. Why do we still care about Vanderbilt?
Oh, yeah, because they're only 1 spot behind Miami somehow, despite the fact that they really haven't done much of anything. Anyway, I digress. This one really isn't going to matter to ranking-wise. It'll be next week's game for Vanderbilt that'll matter. Them against Tennessee, a 3-loss team who, again, 3 quality losses, but no real quality wins, but is ranked number 23 this week. So it could give Vandy another ranked win, or it could give Vandy another quality loss, which may move them up in the rankings as well. Who knows?
Right. The Commodores, at least, it's a Kentucky dangerous team that slaughtered the Gators a few weeks ago. So they're capable. You never know.
Yeah.
The old basketball rivalry in football, Duke against Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels.
Yeah. Andre, just hear me out on this one. So the hypothetical that I said I really don't think will happen. If Pitt beats Georgia Tech, let's just assume Virginia Tech somehow beats Virginia. If Duke wins its final two and Miami wins its final two, do you know what the ACC championship game is?
Duke and Miami.
Duke and Miami. So
Manny Mario.
So Manny Mario, and even otherwise with that, this game, a game between Manny Diaz and Bill Belichick, could determine the fate of a Mario Cristobal-led team. Have fun watching that one, South Florida.
3:30 on ACC Network. And now the big one that I think you pretty much said it already. Pitt at Georgia Tech, 7 p.m. ESPN. Miami needs it badly in this case.
Yeah, they need it badly. If Georgia Tech wins, Georgia Tech's automatically, they're in the ACC championship game. Miami's out of it. But more importantly, on that front, in terms of rankings and whatnot, if Georgia Tech wins this, it'll set up a matchup next Friday of one-loss Georgia Tech and one-loss Georgia.
Right.
And that could have some haywire on the rankings if Georgia Tech is somehow able to do what seems unlikely, but who the heck knows with this college football season. If a one-loss Georgia Tech team beats a one-loss Georgia, it just adds more chaos that Miami really doesn't want and really doesn't need. So Georgia Tech getting a second loss before that game might not be the worst thing in the world.
Yep. And then the last one on this list, 8 p.m. on Fox, BYU, which is ahead of Miami. They're ranked number 11, but again, kind of one of those weak-ish one-loss teams at Cincinnati. Wouldn't hurt if the Bearcats pulled one off at home, knocked the Cougars out of the picture, because that's, again, one of those teams that are in the way of Miami being compared properly.
Correct. And again, BYU's only ranked ahead of them because they only have one loss. But again, they're the flimsiest of those one-loss teams. If they lose, they should be behind Miami. But again, BYU's final two games.
Should they?
I don't know. I mean, Cincinnati, they were ranked a couple weeks ago, so they could be a quality loss.
I didn't catch. They should.
All right. But again, Cincinnati would be a quality loss. Heck, UCF next week would be a quality loss for BYU, I guess. Who knows?
I guess, yeah. Stay tuned. Anyway, that's your viewing guide. If you just want to watch them for the fun of college football, for the hell of it, go for it. But those are the ones that have some sort of even remote implications on Miami this weekend. And we'll wrap the show up as we've done in recent weeks. Let's talk a little basketball before we go. Jordan, the Canes were 3-0. Nothing controversial here. They're starting their season. But they went up to Jacksonville. They didn't have to go to Gainesville, but they faced the defending national champs. They held their own in spots, but the one thing that is starting to show a little bit about this team, as good as they are size-wise, as much improved as they are in the front court, they struggle shooting a bit at times.
Yes.
And that showed its ugly head against the Gators. Even Malik Reneau, who had 22 points, had a good game, didn't really have the help around him, and he himself didn't shoot very well either. I think Miami shot overall, I believe, 34% in that game. Didn't look good from beyond the arc. And that's something that even, maybe not to this degree, but even in those first three wins was kind of showing. They did struggle at times shooting. So is this potentially a worrisome problem for a team that's trying to get back in the mix this year?
It could be. Like I said, they shot 35% from the field, only 28.5% from three. About 29% from three. It's just, and again, you have to credit Florida. They're a great inside presence team. Their rebounding is fantastic. Florida, for their side, they're not that much better on the shooting side. They only shot 32 from three, and
they've struggled too.
Yeah, they've been off to a little bit of a slow start, but they have all that depth inside. They were able to out rebound Miami, which Miami's going to need that to be part of their strength on the defensive side. But Miami's going to need to figure out some shooting. Malik Reneau was only 8 for 23. They rely on him a lot to take basically whatever look he had. But the fact that Miami competed with them for, I want to say, about 25, 28 minutes of this game, competed that closely to defending national champs, number three team in the country, the team that returned a lot of its firepower from last year. That's still a good sign, I would say. For a team that, again, it's year one under Jai Lucas, if they're able to show some stretches down the road and show they can hang with the top teams, maybe not beat them, but they can at least hang with them, especially considering where they were last year to where they are right now. If they can just hang with the top teams and handle their business against the teams who either they should be or teams that are looking like they're in comparable rankings. Comparable rankings. I was able to tie that in here.
Good job.
I'd be fine with what I'm seeing from Miami. I mean, their next real test is going to be BYU in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, BYU that Thanksgiving week in Orlando, that Thanksgiving stretch in Orlando. But all in all, I'm not concerned about this team yet. Let's get some more data points, get some more sample size, and then we can start really making a real evaluation on this Hurricanes basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a brand new roster, brand new coaching staff. I mean, yes, they've had the offseason to kind of, fit and work, but now's the real work. Now the games, nothing like the game experience to really like hone everything through. And that's what these games are for. They have a couple of more, like you mentioned, the BYU games coming up. They have a couple more, tune-up games. They have an interesting one on Thursday against Elon. I know Elon doesn't sound like much, but they have a good player on that roster. Caleb, I think is his first name, Cathrell. He's one of the top scorers, a big man, 6'9" forward, I believe. I think he came into the week ranked in the top 10 in scoring so far this season. So a little bit of a challenge, not just a total, cupcake game, I guess you could call it, for them. And then they face Delaware State, and then, like you said, not just BYU. Then they have the SEC ACC challenge. And they have to face Ole Miss on the road. Ole Miss maybe not one of the top SEC teams, but it's still a road game against a power conference opponent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how this stretch goes through. But again, just every game that they do is going to be a learning experience for both them and for Jai Lucas, seeing how he handles in-game decisions, all that stuff. But again, they're 4 games into the season now. Let's see how things go and how they handle this non-conference slate, and then conference play will be here before you know. It's incredible to think conference play is barely a month out.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, those 2 games that I mentioned, then the BYU game, the Ole Miss game, right after that, when we get to right about the end of the calendar year in December, they face Pitt, and that's it. It goes on from there. All ACC, you jump into the conference schedule at that point. So it's creeping up. They have a few more in between. They have an FIU game actually in there. So I don't remember the date, but in between too. Yeah. But the point is, we finally had something to look at against not only not a cupcake team, but the defending champion,
the cream of the crop,
the best in the country, and Jacksonville. It's not considered a true road game, but let's be honest, it's 4/5 of a road game. Facing the game.
It was a 90% Florida crowd just watching off the TV broadcast. And that's a good point to bring up, because between that game, the 2 games they play in Orlando, and the game against Ole Miss, those are their only games away from Watsco for the non-conference slate. Everything else non-conference is home. So it's a give and take there. You get to see how they handle a road environment, but also for a new team, a team that's completely brand new roster, to be able to get their footing with a long stretch of home games, I think that'd be a benefit for them, just to be able to get their feeling, get their understanding without having to have some of those extra outside factors. That should work to Miami's benefit down the stretch of their non-conference slate.
Right. And then staying on the basketball tip, before we go real quick, I know the women's team has been on a bit of a break. They haven't played since that FAU game last week on Thursday, and they're not going to play until, actually, my mistake, they are playing this weekend. They're playing in Orlando, actually. I was looking more at the teams they were facing soon, more than that. Their first big challenge is on tap. They're facing Davidson, and they're facing a number 19 ranked Iowa team. After that, right around Thanksgiving weekend, they face Oklahoma State, who's ranked 18th, and their own SEC challenge against Kentucky, who's ranked in the top 20. So Tricia Cullip's team is about to go through it too. They're going to find a lot out about themselves in these next couple games.
Yeah, it'll be good to see what they're able to do. I mean, they're off to where they at. They're 3-0 right now, but again, it's going to start ramping up, and we'll get a real better idea of who they are.
Yep. So we'll be back next week to talk a little bit more about that. We'll be back again, like we said last week. We're going week to week with this thing. If Miami does what they're supposed to do, we'll be back marveling at what the committee has to say about that next week, where they put everybody. I'm sure we'll dissect it. And, I owe our producer, Pierre Taylor, about $30 on the swear jar for earlier. But, my PG mouth came back later on as the show went on. So we're okay.
We got better, but it was necessary.
It was necessary. So we'll be back next week to talk about what happened in Blacksburg and set the table for that regular season finale at Pittsburgh and see where Miami's at by then. Maybe talk a little hoops as well. Until then, for Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Eye on the U. Enjoy the college football this week, everybody.